This is Randy Kerns with the Futurum Group, and we're going to do an Infrastructure Matters session with Brian Pawlowski of Quantum, or in this case, we call him BP. BP, it's great to see you again, and we were just talking about this. We saw each other at the Flash Memory Summit. I
Yes.
thought this would be a great chance to catch up with you and get in your perspective. You and I have both been in the industry for a very long time. So it's great to kind of touch base and figure out what's going on. We've got a few questions here that I think will be good prompters here. What do you think has been changing in the storage and applications market compared to, say, 10 years ago?
Um, Flash one, nothing has replaced tape, and disk is squeezed in the middle, and there's no pleasant outcome for disk. And I think what really has changed is, and it's obvious, is the emergence of Flash and the growth that few people predicted back in 2010, 2012. Predicted that we were going to be this far, this fast with the deployment of Flash. I think that's sort of to me the most interesting part, right? But coupled to that, regardless of technology, is data explosion continues unabated. It's just this is the thing. When I started at NetApp, we were really excited. We were going from a 1 gigabyte drive to a 2 gigabyte drive, and 7 drives in the RAID group to 14. We were going for the big time for storage deployments, right? And that was back in '94. Nobody thinks in terms of those sizes anymore for anything, not even for Flash, right? I think you'd struggle to buy a USB stick that size, right? And I think that the size of systems and the capacity of the systems and the explosion of data growth has gone in has gone in unanticipated ways. I just don't think anybody would predict where we are right now. They would be lowballing it far below where we are.
I absolutely agree. And it's stunning to me when I reflect back on it over my career and see how things have changed. And there are people that say storage is boring, but they're not paying attention because it dramatically changes all the time. And there's new developments. It's pretty exciting to me. But the big issues I see are in managing all this information. So what do you see as the limitations today for that?
Yeah, the limitations for the management of data is it's the needle in the haystack problem, right? You know you have it somewhere. You know the information is there because you've basically decided that your move forward strategy is going to be save everything, and because God knows I might need it for my next AI application. I was just at Carnegie Mellon University at their Parallel Data Lab retreat, and several of the researchers there and the industry researchers were arguing about that's just a really dope, not a really smart approach to save everything. You kind of have to curate it. We were arguing back and forth about it, but the thing is basically finding the data you want quickly, and not just by file name. Okay, you start looking at object, you start looking at video. At my current employer, we have a media asset manager product, and that allows you to basically, I call it deep packet inspection of data, that allows you to find bits of data with like by facial recognition, by an object in the frame in an hour-long video, and to tag it and go back there anytime you want. And so it's no longer find a file. It's find the interesting bit of the content you need at that moment in time as fast as possible to make use of it for a lot of industries. Okay. And then, so anyway, so it's gotten a lot more complicated, and the pile you have to grope through typically is much, much larger now.
Well, and it's certainly okay to talk about your current employer and the product here and name that, because that's actually an outstanding solution I've worked with for a number of years. Let's talk about the new product, Myriad, and
Okay.
what it brings to the market and what's different about it. I've been pretty excited about it when it was initially shown to us. And tell me a little bit more about it.
Yeah. So, in the simplest sense, and that's not going to get anybody excited, Myriad is an all flash array, and it's basically designed to work fast. And second level is Myriad is a scale out all flash array that can grow to any size you want for as much performance and data scaling as you need. I think the place where it gets very interesting is Myriad is primarily a storage software solution built in terms of containerized technologies to support large system scale out in a very uniform way. I really do think it's a cookie cutter approach. And it basically makes no assumptions about the hardware except basically three things. One, you have NVMe flash. Two, you have an NVMe fabric. And three, you just have a CPU. Now, what didn't I mention in there? There's no requirement for HA. You don't have to have dual ported SSDs, that lowers the price. You don't have to have specialized server hardware, use compute nodes. So, truly, truly commodity hardware. Honest to God, we've talked about, I've said so many times in every company I've been in that we use commodity hardware, but this is like really off the shelf hardware that we couldn't have made a product of except everything basically evolved to this point. NVMe became a standard. NVMe Fabric, and NVMe is a great enabler for flash performance. NVMe Fabric basically allows compute nodes, the CPU complexes, to talk directly to the storage in a crossbar situation, and we have an extremely uniform cookie cutter scale out solution that you said before about what happened 10 years ago. 10 years ago, NVMe Fabric didn't exist. 10 years ago, Kubernetes didn't exist, right? And now we're using basically a mini cube kind of um, cluster based on Kubernetes technology and a container architecture all the way through that allows us to sort of kind of build it out of logical building blocks very quickly.
Well, one of the things is this, and you brought it up, is this east-west traffic thing has always
Yeah,
been a limiting factor. Now you've seen the way to overcome this or
yeah,
compensate for a great deal of it. So that's very important. I agree, absolutely.
yeah.
So tell me, how's this fit into your bigger picture portfolio that Quantum has?
When I got to Quanta, they had we basically cover a lot of. We have seven products. We span the spectrum of capture with video surveillance. And as an aside, I keep hearing that, like, first of all, when we talk about the data explosion, it's unstructured data. We're not talking about database kind of stuff. But 60% of the unstructured data comes from video surveillance. I mean, they're camera. We're on cameras now, but I mean, video surveillance includes body cams, right? Video surveillance is in every 7-Eleven you go to, right? Banks, ATM machines, every street in London probably, and just nonstop, right? So that's a gigantic part of the unstructured data explosion. So we have that. We go to our StoreNext file system, which is a high-speed video post-production file system that's in use by most of the major studios worldwide and sports teams. By the way, when we used to think video, we thought you think studios, right? But now it's sports teams, franchises, all the networks that cover them, and corporate video. Everything's corporate video these days, right? In fact, I was trying to figure out how to fix my camera on my this morning before we got on, and I was getting YouTube video suggestions, and I'm like, I don't have time to watch a YouTube video. I just want to see the next few steps I have to do. Um, we also have active scale object storage, right? And this is another thing that's really exploded over the past 10 years. Is basically S3 is a standard pushed by Amazon, and it's a standard for data access in the cloud and on-prem. And we go into our tape robots, right? And our automation, we call them automation. These are the gigantic robotic tape libraries that basically store lots of data cheaply. Um, what we were missing was that the thing in the middle for primary storage for general purpose high performance applications. We had the ingest part, we had a specialized video post production file system, object storage, which is sort of like the next middle tier over, and then tape. And Myriad basically plugs a hole in the center and provides the really high performance solution for what I would call modern data applications, right?
And it can scale very large, which
Yeah.
is kind of where we started this discussion. One of the things I do want to maybe reflect on is I spend a lot of time with our large IT clients,
Uh,
and it's somewhat of a defense mechanism in that the IT people keep all the data because they don't want to fight with legal or anybody else about what needs to be deleted. And so to keep everything is a lowest common denominator of not having to battle for saying you don't need that anymore.
yeah.
And that has changed everything from the standpoint of lots of data, but being kept forever. So
Yeah.
now you end up with these data management and migration or data movement
Mhm.
capabilities like you have with StoreNext becoming so valuable. And now you've filled this giant hole in the middle. This is great.
Yeah. I mean, the data. So, you saw my data factory picture. I think
Mhm.
that's the thing, right? And my colleague Eric came up with this model of data is something that's transformed and manufactured into a product, just like a car. So he said, I like the blue collar kind of analogy for this stuff because we always think airy thoughts, right? And you have raw materials, which are the capture points like video, surveillance, or medical imagery, and then you put it into the processing, which is where we intersect with AI today, right? That's becoming so much a part of the transformation of the data to something usable. And so then, which is where I was talking about, facial recognition and things, and the AI part. And then you have the finished goods, and then you go store the finished goods. And where do you store the finished goods? And you're going to store it on lower cost storage. You put it on the retail shelf for sale, right? The thing about data where that factory model breaks is that data is reusable. You pull it off the shelf, you put it back into the process, you redo it and make it better and stuff. Um, it's just it's fascinating that the data moves from all through I don't want to use the word tiers because it doesn't that's kind of
Yeah.
bothers me a little bit because it's so fluid between cost points where it's being stored based on the performance required at a given time and how much you want to pay for it because of how it's being used at that moment, but it moves back and forth. So go back to your finding the data question. Where in all of this kind of circular pipeline that also includes the cloud, all of our products basically interface with the cloud and can use the cloud as a final destination and then pull it back from that. Maintaining the catalog and location of that data and then go back to, I want to find, I don't know, I want to find all of the video clips of Billie Eilish in the LA concert in December. I went there, by the way, in the in December Billie Eilish conference when she was whatever. The night she played with David Grohl, right? Okay, so I need
Oh,
those things because I'm doing a news thing later on. Anyway, finding that data across all of these storage solutions, that's the complexity of what we're dealing with today. It's not just one storage system anymore, right?
yeah. There's one more thing observation I'll make is that,
Mhm.
and I'm sure you didn't plan this, but your timing is great from the standpoint that you've got a high performance NAS system effectively. And
Mhm.
now we're at this point with AI and needing high performance access to lots of file data as more and more people
Right.
want to use private data to train or tune, these foundational models.
Yeah.
This is going to be a solution that you'll push into that market and be very useful there.
Yeah. No, I agree. There's a repatriation from the cloud is real. Um, I think I think we're reaching a point of pragmatic cloud usage, right? I was on some call with some analyst. Um, I don't know. I'm not sure when, in 2009, 2010, and they they were like, everything's moving to the cloud, and the cloud at that point was the only cloud was Amazon, right?
Mhm.
Everything's moving to Amazon. Now today, then you got fast forward 6, 7 years, and it's like, which cloud are you moving to, right? How many clouds are there? And now people are looking at the problem in a more complex way. I mean, and I maybe hybrid cloud is the word I want to use here, but they're going to use on-prem, they're going to use cloud. Data is going to move back and forth. The cloud is not the final destination anymore. Go back to the data movement is, you bring in the data, having the data where it needs to be, when it needs to be, and at the cost it deserves to be, right? And so it moves back and forth. So it's gotten interesting, I think, and like you going back to your comment of the data, finding the data, using the data observation that you made. That's the thing to kind of solve, right? Uh,
Yep.
it makes it all very interesting. It's not a storage problem per se. It's a data problem, right? My diagram did show all the storage infrastructure in the basement, right? Like the plumbing.
I have this conversations with a lot of clients about data versus information.
Mm,
Data, bits of ones and zeros that you organize
mm,
and everything. It's
mm.
information when you know what it is, and that
Right, right, right.
that tends to ring home with them because that's the real problem in that they've got lots of data, but there's an awful lot they're not really sure what it is, and
That,
that
that
plays to exactly what you're saying.
that's an interesting. That's an interesting. I haven't thought of that. Distinguishing data from information. I always think of data as the user stuff and storage as the stuff that I work on. But no, information has. I think information has meaning of um, con- what is it?
Context.
Meaning, right? There, and I think there's a metric for information meaning density or something like that for like spewing lots of data and not having any information whatsoever, or a very information dense kind of data. That's an interesting way to look at it. Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been great conversation. Of course, you and I know each other and could go
Yep.
on for hours here. However, we're somewhat limited, so we probably need to close out. Any last thoughts about where we're at and what's going on and what the future is going to be, especially around where Myriad's going to take you?
Yeah. So um, you know, we did Myriad. It's because one of the goals was, like I said, to avoid any specific hardware requirement other than what's available off the shelf, truly off the shelf. I mean, it's like no special requirements whatsoever. Um, so the software it's like it just runs on compute nodes.
Hmm.
If we go grab an OCP box, we can probably run Myriad on it without a problem. And so we're looking at the future of Myriad as primarily being just software running on different people's hardware. And yet, you're going to qualify this stuff. But we've already run Myriad in the cloud as a proof of
Hmm.
concept because it's just software. So we're going to be releasing cloud versions of Myriad to give you a kind of a fluid storage solution that you can manage from across the whole spectrum of your
Like a
deployments.
common experience.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah. So,
All right.
um, can I say one more thing? A couple more.
Absolutely.
So, the thing, the talk I was asked to give at the Flash Memory Summit was, can you come in and explain to us about tape and active scale cold storage? Kind of the glacier-like
Yeah,
approach to
yeah, yeah.
that object-based tape storage. And I mean, you asked what's changed in 10 years. What's not changed? This is the, I It's funny. I cannot get over it. But tape is still a mainstay for the durable long-term storage of data at the lowest cost possible because you put the data on the tape and you pretty much put it on the shelf. It draws no power. It sits there pleasantly, and you pull it back and you read it back at some point in the future. It's a well-known technology. I had mentioned at the Flash Memory Summit, we are looking at finding the replacement for tape, because everybody asks that question. Well, what replaces tape? And I think my last line at the Flash Memory Summit was like, well, nothing yet, and so you better love your tape now, because hug your tape, because it's going to be with us for a while. But I think that's going to be kind of a fascinating place, and that's probably the most boring. No offense to all the tape heads out there. If there's something, if storage is boring, flash is really boring. I'm not sorry, tape is really boring, and yet I think it's going to be really important in that space, because where's all that data going to go? You can't afford to start sorting the most expensive parts of the system, and you want it for a long time. So you need a durable, long-term storage option for low-cost storage. I oddly expect there's going to be more innovation there. I like witness Amazon's Glacier. Amazon's Glacier is object front-ended tape-like stuff up there. They don't talk much about it. Azure has it too, and those storage solutions are to allow people to afford to keep all this data that they feel they need. Right.
Okay, so let's talk for a second about ActiveScale with the ability to tier off the tape. How does that all work with Myriad today? What's the process, the way data would flow here?
So the way that Myriad is, as you mentioned, basically a file and object system. It's a high performance solution, and it's all flash based. So it sits at the primary storage part of the pipeline, right? ActiveScale cold storage uses ActiveScale, or object S3 based object storage system, with tape backend, and it essentially provides an object storage interface to tape. It's that simple. Um, so we've been in our product line basically using S3 as our, I keep using the word tiering. I got to use it this time. Tiering solution as the standard interface to tier to tape through ActiveScale, or to tier to cloud. And our customers have this in production with StoreNext. So our file systems automatically, we can set up policies, but this is not something you do manually. This is the scale of data problem, right? You set up a policy of when to move data off of your active part of your system, very expensive, which is the flash system, to your tape. And so when I look at ActiveScale cold storage, I look at the S3 object front end of ActiveScale as the translator to tape. No one is using tape, but our customers are increasingly not using tape as tape. They're not
It's a
backup applications.
repository. Yeah.
This is basically taking files and blobbing them up and moving them to ActiveScale, except it's basically moving it to tape. And we do all the management of that. Or you can move it to cloud. But it's that the important part is that kind of the two-pole thing of tape and flash. We started with this a bit. Tape and flash, tape and flash. These are the two things that are going to be the important parts of your infrastructure in the future, and then basically moving the data back and forth between them. But that so it's just it's the policy based automated movement of that data that's critical, because as we've been talking about, the sheer amount of data we're talking about and dealing with here, it defies any manual intervention on the part of administrators.
So the customers would define what that policy is, and
Yeah.
then and set it to auto mode, and you don't worry about it after that, right?
Yeah, and we had talked about, enhanced deep packet data inspection, so to speak, right? So this is not just by file name or expiration, or modified time or user, and there's other enhanced metadata that we're tagging the files with in
Mhm.
Myriad to allow you to do more fine-grained data motion of when to move data off of Myriad onto ActiveScale object storage.
Yeah, some of the dynamics about the
Mhm.
technology change and forward migrations and
Yeah,
all that
yeah,
are considerations that have kind of
yes,
moved away from the normal IT operations
yep,
and moved into cloud providers are very, very large organizations, and so that fits there. But there's other dynamics, so it's not a simple answer anymore, as anything. All right. Well, this has been wonderful to talk to you again, and hopefully it'll be before the next Flash Memory Summit where we can get together. But
Oh, I hope so. I hope so.
yeah, it's all fun though. Thanks a lot for taking the time. Again, BP, thank you very much, and I look forward to the next time we get a chance to talk.
Okay. All right. Thanks so much.